It's about that time of day again, folks. Welcome back to your nightly newsletter, boys and girls. Joseph James here. It's Wednesday evening, November the 2nd, 2016. Crude is bearish and trading at the highs of a range. Even the S&P is bearish and trading at a triple measured move. Gold is bullish, but a recent collapse off the highs gives the bears a great opportunity to hold the next pullback. And of course, the euro is bullish and trying to retest the highs tomorrow, but they need to get through some key levels of resistance first. As always, I have another great newsletter in store for you guys and gals tonight. Plenty of reliable trading opportunities setting up for tomorrow. We got the reaction to today's FOMC announcement on the burner for tomorrow. Got a great opportunity here for some big moves tomorrow. I'm really excited to get this session underway. Before we jump into our charts for tonight, I do want to remind you the only place to watch the full-length version of this video is on our blog at sidewaysmarkets.com. If you're watching the video right now on our YouTube channel, not to worry. There's a link in the description of the YouTube video. Follow that link. Come join me here on the blog at Sideways Markets and watch the full-length version. While you're here, don't forget, join the mailing list. I'll send you an email every evening, Monday through Thursday, before 8 p.m. Eastern Time when our newsletter goes live. Download today's charts. That's right. You can have all the charts you see me using in tonight's video. Have those charts ready on your computer tomorrow. Upper right-hand corner, don't forget to grab your free pass. If you're not a member here at School of Trade, I got a free pass for you guys. Grab that free pass in the upper right-hand corner. And don't forget, if you're brand new here to the SOT community, don't forget we've got a great frequently asked questions page to answer all of your most common questions and concerns. And don't forget, I'm always here to help you guys out. If you have any questions, use the live support button on the right-hand side of the website, and we'll be here to help every step of the way. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. Boy, hopefully I'll get this video done in time for the first pitch of Game 7 of the World Series. We almost knew this was coming, right? We almost knew this was coming. It's going to be a great game tonight. We'll talk more about that though at the end of this video here. I'm more upset that we're finishing up the baseball season, right? You know, they always say there's only one October. We're through October now. We're going to November. Speaking of November, tomorrow's Thursday, November 3rd. Let's take a look at the news here for tomorrow. Let's see here. We've got, first of all, tonight we've got 8:45. We're going to hear from the General Services PMI from China. Don't forget, if you're trading the overnight session tonight, you do have some major news coming from our friends in China, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few hours after we send out our nightly newsletter. And of course, please don't forget, tomorrow we've got some news coming out of Europe. 5:30 a.m. We're going to see the PMI services, but I think the big news tomorrow morning for the London session traders won't be really until we open up in the U.S. session. We got the Bank of England announcement and, of course, their meeting minutes. Everyone's wondering what's happening in Great Britain. Of course, the Bank of England after the Brexit vote, right, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So we know that will be on everyone's minds tomorrow. And of course, we go, then into the U.S. session at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We got jobless claims, productivity and costs tomorrow at 8:30. And then we have 10 a.m. news, got a peppering of news here tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. And then, of course, 10 a.m. we get the factory orders and ISM non-manufacturing. So recap here tonight, 8:45 if you're trading the overnight Asian session. Tomorrow, if you're trading London, we've got some news here at 5:30 a.m. to be keeping an eye on. And again, that big news tomorrow out of the BOE, the announcement in minutes at 8 a.m. tomorrow. If you're trading the euro, you want to be watching that closely here tomorrow morning. 8:30 a.m., of course, we got the typical jobless claims report every Thursday. And then, of course, 10 o'clock, factory orders and the ISM non-manufacturing. Factory orders and manufacturing will be on everyone's radar here as we go into the end of the year and, of course, the holiday shopping season. Very important, though, to remember, tomorrow is Reaction Thursday. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's the day after the FOMC announcement. Now, as expected, we talked about this last night, we weren't expecting any big surprises out of the Fed. In fact, they didn't even mention the word election in the entire report today. So I thought that was, the announcement from the Fed, just like tomorrow, right, the BOE announcement, it's what they don't say, and that's usually what analysts are going to get hung up on. And the fact that Yellen didn't even mention the word election just, I think, goes a long way. I think it's probably going to be ringing in the ears of traders tomorrow as this session opens up. It does feel like, with gold and euro dollar movement here this week, it does feel like these markets are starting to take a bit of a position stance ahead of the election coming up on the 8th Of course, next week. Can't believe it's already next week. Sooner the better, right? Get this election out of the way here so we can all get back to our normal routines here. So bottom line is, be aware tomorrow is Reaction Thursday, the day after the FOMC announcement. Right now, all the analysts have a chance to put their plans together. And of course, we have a full day of opportunities tomorrow, with the exception, right, of a few big news events which trade around tomorrow morning for Thursday, November the 3rd. The next thing you want to keep in mind out for tomorrow is the Thursday before the non-farm payroll report, right? The first Friday of every 1 month, unless the first day of the month is a Friday, you're going to get the employment situation, right? The non-farm payroll report. What this means that later in the day tomorrow, you're probably going to start seeing the volume dry up a little bit. So, 2:30, 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, you're going to start seeing that volume dry up pretty significantly. Basically because larger position traders, big fund managers, right? People who can't get in and out of positions easily, they're going to want to make sure they've got the back door closed before that number comes out tomorrow, right? So tomorrow, get to it, right? Get to it early. We should have a pretty full day tomorrow just because of the FOMC announcement today, and a lot of traders will come in and place their bets tomorrow, right? Knowing they have a full day of trading tomorrow. And again, later in the day, right? Again, 2:33, 3:30, but before the closing bell of cash in the equity markets, should start seeing things slow down just because, again, we have the big non-farm payrolls on Friday, and of course all the big elephants in the market, they can't maneuver, right, like us day traders, and so they'll start getting out of positions or at least protect themselves, right, without entering into new positions ahead of that Friday news report. So get in early. Should have pretty much a full day tomorrow, but again, with that non-farm on Friday, we'll be looking for that volume to dry up a little bit, right, towards the end of the day tomorrow. It's always a bit of a variable when we come out of FOMC. I could easily see tomorrow being a rip-roaring day here, just because, again, most traders are not going to mess with the FOMC announcement. As always, we'll come in bright and early tomorrow morning. We open up our trade room at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll see what we get. These days, you're going to come in every day and just see what you get. Let's go. Let's keep going here. Crude, S&P, gold, and euro tonight on the docket. Crude is bearish, just a little bit, and trading at the highs of a range this evening. The sellers have control after a strong move lower this morning after the inventory report. But a higher low has created a rising support trend line, which might just give the buyers the opportunity they need to hold this pullback and make a run up to the battle zone and possibly test that news resistance level overhead up at that 46.24. Sellers will be looking for the buyers to fail on the next pullback, but heads up, they're not going to want to sell into that support trend line. So they need to either wait for the failure up at the battle zone, right, when they have enough room to sell down, or look for a breakout pullback below that trend line for a target going back to the lows, and possibly the news target all the way down at 43.78. That's right, we get a big target waiting for us down at 43.78. So as you can see here this morning, obviously the market, nothing but bearish here. This market feels like it's got a cinder block tied to it right now, and just kind of slowly, right, bleeding lower here. Of course, the news comes out, and whenever we have a big news event, news usually creates a spike. Spikes usually create spike in channels, spike in ranges, spike in wedges, right? Flags, right? You can see here, there's your spike and range. So spike and range tells me a couple things. First of all, I want to sell the high, right, of a spike in range, and with the target going back down to that low. Another thing that a spike in range tells me, or a spike in general, is that I can now use that information, right, the size of that spike, and I can now go looking for, let's keep going, right, that what we call a double down target, right? We use these around the inventory reports. 43.78 to be specific is that double down target. Now, obviously at this point, I don't really think it's wise to be swinging for the fences and trying to get that as my final target. If you were a swing trader, though, and you were in a position where you could sell more as the price goes against you, right, you may want to take that gamble here right now. But as of right now, they're a little bit too early to go using that target. But if we do end up seeing a bloodbath tomorrow in the crude oil futures markets, we do know, right, that big double down target from the news is likely to be the market's objective. We'll have to wait and see more information from there. Now, with that said, I think really the biggest clue right now is this rising trend line. This rising trend line really makes it difficult for me to want to sell at this point. So of course, the bears have control. The bulls have a great opportunity right now to grab it. If I'm a bear, what I'm thinking right now is I don't want to sell into, right? I don't want to sell into that rising support trend line. So ultimately what my objective is as a bear right now is to get up and sell it back down, right? Get up in some of these resistance areas overhead, which is going to give the buyers a good chance here to hold this pullback. Or I got to get back below that trend line and then hold a pullback and basically turn that support trend line, right, into a resistance trend line, right? Once I get back below it, then I can use it as resistance. And, depending on where it happens, I may be able to combine that with the top of that range. So we'll see how this thing plays out here in the short term. So if you kind of look at this right now, you want to be thinking for the sellers up, right, and back down. Initial target, of course, is going to be at that rising support trend line. That, of course, will be, right, the initial target. And keep in mind, what makes a rising support trend line so interesting is that it keeps getting higher. Right? So this market really has to be careful. Sellers really have to be careful of selling into that rising support trend line. Of course, the next target will be down at the low of that range, and the low of that range, of course, now being right around that 45.03. Give this a little bit of some wiggle room here, right? And there's a few levels I chose to leave off of this chart. 45.01 was actually the low of that news move. So think of this whole area here between 45.03 and 44.96. Think of that as kind of a range of support, and so really you're going to want to get through that range before you go looking for any additional selling opportunities. So bears are looking for price to be up, right, and then come back down. At the same time, get below and hold that pullback, right, get below and hold that pullback below that range. So bears are looking for buyer failure, up inside that battle zone, up at the overhead resistance levels, right, at that double up, and of course, again, below the low of that, right, of that trading range here as well. Notice how I'm drawing that moving average. Notice how the moving average comes below that 44.96. That's going to be a real key component here. And again, the big target, of course, now is down at that 43.78. We'll see if we can get there. Usually we don't see big range days followed up with another big range day, but we are in some kind of unprecedented environment here right now. We've got an FOMC announcement today, right, soon to be yesterday for tomorrow's session, and of course we got a pending election right now, and it does feel like these markets are starting to anticipate. I've been reading a lot more activity. The bookies in Vegas right now are seeing things start to shift around, and so we may be seeing a little bit of a final few days here ahead of that election. We may start seeing people place their bets as far as what they anticipate the reaction to the dollar will be, and how that dollar will, of course, right, kind of trickle into gold, equities, energies, metal, right, currency markets across the board. So be aware of that. Now, what if you want to be a buyer right now? Really, if you want to be a buyer right now, there are two spots. Well, ultimately, there are three spots that you want to be thinking about being a buyer. The first one would be here, right, at this area here. Next one's going to be up top here. And, of course, the other would be way down here. So let's talk about this for a second. First of all, the buyers have a great shot here to hold a pullback right now. They get a great area of support at the top of the range. They have a great trend line. Like I said, I think this rising trend line is really going to be the big ace up the sleeve, right, for the bulls right now. The problem, though, is that they're not going to want to mess with this overhead resistance. That will be called buying high, right? We want to buy low, not buying high. So get through that area, get that moving average to follow it up, right? And then, of course, we can try to hold above that double up. Really, the most important thing is to get through the double up, get through that 45.89 area, and then at that point now the buyers are hunting for that inventory news resistance and possibly the prior low, which of course is up at 46.63. Now, what if we were to go lower here as well? Well, if we were to make a move lower here, watch out for a situation like this. Remember I said earlier, if we're going to go below this range, we've really got to get a good strong push, strong enough to get that moving average below that 44.96, right? That's the key here for those sellers, right? Get below that 44.96. That way you've got enough strength to get those buyers off your back. Well, think about it this way too. What if that wasn't strong enough? What if we did one of these, right?